All right. Well, welcome everyone. I am Nicole Weber. I am the counseling curriculum leader K through 12 here at North Hills High School. Also a 9th and 10th grade school counselor for students last names M through Z, and the Beatty liaison as well that goes out for the school counseling pieces. So I saw that Kim is here from Beatty. So thank you, Kim, for attending, and I will see you November 2nd. So talking about some new programs that we have for the advisory council. I did want to mention one thing. We will be recording, so I will start the recording just from when my time is that I started talking, but it will be recorded. So if you do have questions or concerns, they will be recorded. If you feel uncomfortable with that and prefer to chat or email, that's also a possibility as well, even after the fact, if you have other questions that come up. So, and this is our school counseling department. We have Highcliffe, McIntyre, Ross, Westview, each with one counselor at those buildings. And we have a new elementary student assistant, Jackie Kutztera, and she's going to be talking a little bit about the new elementary STAT program. We have Suhair, Dawn, and Sam at the middle school, and then we have Franz Ratneval, and he does the middle school student assistants. And we also have Mrs. Dove, myself, Dr. Barkovich, and Mrs. Davis at the high school, and Mrs. Rowley does our student assistants, and she's going to talk about her new chill suite today. So goals are talking about those two new programs. We also have, as part of the pupil personnel services umbrella, not necessarily in the school counseling department, but our school psychologists. There are 2 new school psychologists, and they're going to talk about some of the new roles and how they're working with our students. And we will also discuss goals for the elementary school, middle school, and high school. So to start off, I am going to turn it over to Jackie. Jackie, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Are you guys able to see me or no?
I cannot see you. I do see just a gray.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that.
Probably the presentation that's being shared out, that they see that instead of you.
Okay. So I'm Jackie Kutztera. I am the elementary student assistance counselor at the middle school. So you guys are all familiar, with the middle school SAP counselor and the high school SAP counselor. So it's pretty much the same, other than it looks different with being in between the 4 schools. So I go between all 4 of the elementary schools. On Mondays, I'm at Ross. Tuesdays, Westview. Wednesdays, McIntyre. And Thursday, I go to Highcliffe. So to start off, to get like my caseload and my students that I see, the counselors have really helped me, and I've collaborated with them to kind of get the students that I see on a regular basis, either weekly or just do check-ins with. And those are students that are either referred to SAP, or students that may have been SAP'd in the past, or students, the students that I see on a weekly basis are really those ones that tend to not turn stuff in, or we're in the process of waiting on that referral to Glade Run to go through, or waiting for them to be screened into Holy Families and all that stuff. So I really see the kids either on a weekly basis or just until they get connected to services, and I'll check in with other students as well. I'm also starting to meet with students and do some groups and different things like that at some of the buildings, self-regulation, the zones of regulation. I'm going to be doing a grief group here at McIntyre as well as at Ross. So getting those things started. Some other things, we're just kind of looking, since this is new, and building and creating what this position will look like. The Red Ribbon Week coming up, I'm going to start maybe taking that over and going into the 5th grade classrooms and doing lessons and different things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of where we're at right now with that.
Very nice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of something new that we have started before. Each elementary counselor handled the student assistance piece as well as the counseling piece. So this, we're hoping, is giving them some assistance with getting especially the paperwork in play, being able to meet with those students like Jackie was talking about, until they can get services, because sometimes there is a delay. So a really cool new program that we're offering. The next program is the Chill Suite at the high school. And I have Ms. Bradley on here with us if she would like to share how that looks for her.
Hi, everyone. I'm April Radley, the student assistance counselor at the high school. So the chill room was created to give all the students a safe place when needed, a space to practice mindfulness and to use calming skills when addressing their mental health and emotional well-being. Our goal is that the chill room helps the students react to and cope with their stressors in a positive way. When a student wants to use the space, they can ask a teacher or they can stop on their way to class. They have, they scan a QR code and answer a few questions. That includes their name. Does their teacher know they are here? Do they need a break or do they need to talk? I check in with them, and if they just need a break, they're allowed a 10 to 15 minute break, or we may talk first. Each student and situation is typically different and then handled accordingly. We know that overall school is a source of stress for most students. We recognize that students' social emotional well-being is an important aspect in development and academic success. There is significant research on the topic, for example, with regards to supporting social and emotional well-being of students. Research shows that programs that support students' development in communicating effectively, negotiating conflict, practicing empathy, understanding their own skills and abilities, managing their emotions and behaviors, and social and emotional skills can lead to better academic and life outcomes. I also put on here, Nicole, if you can go to the next slide, we have some pictures of the chill suite. So the picture on the left is the actual chill room that the kids can use to take a break. The lighting, it's a very nice atmosphere. That's why it's typically a 10 to 15 minute break. You know, I don't want kids to get too comfortable, but again, every situation is different. The photo in the middle is like a SAP conference room. That's where I hold my weekly SAP meetings. Oftentimes kids need a space to work that's smaller, so I'll let kids work in there. And then the other photo is just the opposite side of the room. You can see on that table with the orange light, that's where they scan the code. And then that window looks into the center room, which is my office. So if I'm in the center room talking to a kid one-on-one, I can see when kids come in, I'll check in with them. So there's oftentimes kids, you know, taking a break in that room while I might be speaking with someone. Oh, and this was exciting. North Hills did get the 2021 Student Assistance Excellent Award from Anchor Point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, went too far. Apologies. And then, as I said before, there's another new program, but it's with our school psychologist, and we have two new school psychologists, Miriam Ferguson and Christine Hargrove. And Miriam is here with us today to speak about what their new program looks like.
Hello, and I apologize. I'm having the same issue that Ms. Kutztera had where my video is just gray, and I'm not sure how to fix that. But I did want to share a little bit about what the new counseling school psychologist position looks like. So essentially, I'm providing, or my primary job responsibility is to provide evidence-based therapeutic interventions at that tier 3 or that most significant level. And the goal of that is just to improve overall educational outcomes for students. Presently, I am supporting all of our buildings. So that is students K through 12. And I do typically meet with students individually, but I also am doing some small group sessions as well. The school staff does follow a referral process in order to allow students to receive my service. That does include various steps, which includes meeting with the school counselor and with the SAP counselor prior to receiving my services. Also, when students are working with me, we try to identify treatment goals together, and I'm closely monitoring their progress through different data collection procedures. So I'm doing interviews with teachers with parents, with the student, and using different measures to kind of collect that data, and hopefully have those students generalize the skills that they're learning in counseling with me across different settings in school and in the community. I'm also providing behavioral consultation and attending different meetings throughout the district to work closely with different school teams and staff, and just provide additional support for all students. Also, Christine Hargrove, Christine Hargrove, she is our other new school psychologist. She still is kind of serving that more traditional school psychologist role, so that assessment for special education eligibility. So that's kind of how my role differs from that more traditional school psychologist role.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So to the yearly goals, and I just like to put little quotes in there sometimes, but planning is bringing the future into the present so you can do something about it now. And I feel like this was a rebuilding year for everyone. We had the COVID and the kids came back into the buildings, and we're seeing different behaviors and things that we haven't seen before. So it really was looking at what the goals should be for this year. And so I relied heavily on our district just presented a future ready comprehensive plan. And some of the goals that were in there were talking about things like social emotional learning, having a chill space. So student preparedness was one of the district future ready goals, to continue to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens by focusing equally on personal development and intellectual growth. And the school environment will provide a nurturing, inclusive, and academically challenging environment with equitable opportunities for each student. So I was looking to match our goals with where the district was going. Elementary goal, their goal for the year, and we'll collect data throughout the year. And then in March, when we have our spring meeting, we'll report back on what our progress is, if we've been meeting our goal, if there's still some things we have to do, or if we need to revamp, or maybe it's showing us that we have a gap somewhere that we have to fill. Through Tier 1 intervention of social emotional classroom lessons, 90% of students will be able to identify at least 3 coping skills by the end of 2nd grade. So that is the elementary goal. Middle school goal, increase in social emotional and Tier 1 interventions to increase attendance rates by 10%. And the high school goal, increase in social emotional learning, Tier 1 interventions to increase students passing classes by 10%. And I'm going to explain what I mean by the Tier 1 in just a minute. I also wanted to have an additional note. This is, as we said, a very different year from last year, and they're bringing back the career and college visits. They have been coming in person. I know Dr. Barkovich has been meeting with a lot of those. I think every college that has come in. So that's been his, main push for the year. But the reason that that is important is that a lot of institutions are now SAT or ACT optional, and that may or may not continue next year. So a lot of things are still up in the air because of dealing with COVID. And institutions are measuring their admittance process a little bit differently and looking at things like demonstrated interest. And what they mean by that is, since we have over 100 college reps that come to North Hills to visit our students, if they would to meet with one of them when they come in, that's going to show demonstrated interest. If they attend a virtual or live college fair, or virtual or live campus visit, or simply opening an email or communicating with someone from that college, that's another way that they can show demonstrated interest and help get them into the college of their choice. And he is, like I said, meeting with over 100 reps from college, military, community college, trade schools, and trying to reestablish those connections that we kind of have lost in the past few years because we couldn't have in-person meetings.
Nicole, these meetings are important because in the past, people would think, oh, it's so that Mrs. Davis or I could call and say, oh, please let this kid in. No, that's not the purpose of having a relationship with a college. The student needs to go there and be able to be successful. They need to be admitted on their own. but the world is a very different place than it was 2 years ago. And there's a lot of unusual circumstances and different considerations that we need to take in mind. And so it's really important that Deb Davis and I be able to know somebody to call and say, hey, listen, this is what we need to bring your attention to. Or, you know what, if you could look at 9th grade, 10th grade, and their senior year for a better representation of who they are rather than their junior year. So it's really helpful to explain the different circumstances that are that COVID has caused.
Perfect, thank you. No, because it is different than how it has been. So, and then the further details to explain a little bit about that social emotional piece. And it's kind of the buzzword, but what really does that mean, and how does it look for us? So just from the American School Counselor Association, as school counselors, we cover 3 main areas with our students. One is academics. So, are you doing your homework? Have you been able to organize or time manage, and working on study skills? That's also another piece of our district yearly goals. So just for example, I'm running a study skills group now. We have other groups that happen too, but that's an academic piece that we are working on. The career piece, so making sure kids are choosing appropriate classes so that they can go to the college that they want, getting the appropriate grades to go to the college they want, making sure that the college they're looking for has the major that they have. And it seems like kind of a basic question, but these are things that kids don't always think about. They want to go to, Penn State because their friend wants to go there. So making sure we're having those conversations about their schedule and about what their career path is to keep them going in a direction. Even if that direction changes, it's better to have some direction than no direction. And the social emotional piece is more about managing their emotions and being able to apply those skills that they learn about how to manage their emotions. So if you're having a bad day, what's an appropriate way to deal with that? To come down and maybe see a counselor, or go to the chill suite, and try to be able to regroup yourself and self-manage those emotions so that you can go back to class. And that's what we're trying to help teach students with the social emotional learning. And to kind of I'm more of a visual person, so I like graphs and charts, but the program that we have for having the advisory council is very career oriented. And sometimes it's good to have just career goals, but this year is very different. And those social emotional pieces, I know we've talked about this in prior years, those are those soft skills, being able to work with others, being able to work in a group, being able to solve a problem without having to, ask your supervisor 15 questions. And that is one of the things that have been reported by multiple organizations where people have jobs outside, that they're still looking for computer skills and things of that sort that we used to have to do, but they're also looking for people who can show up on time every day, stay all day, work with their coworkers, and be productive. And that seems kind of just intuitive that that's how it would be, but that is the struggle we're seeing. So there's the academic piece, and it works with the career piece, but so does the social emotional. If they don't have those pieces, they can be the smartest kid and go to the smartest college, but if they can't get along with others, it's going to make it very difficult. So that's kind of where our focus is going to be for this year. And then explaining, we had talked about in the goals, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and we heard from Miriam about the school psychologist and talking about there are some steps that people have to take to get to her level. So this explains what that looks like. Tier 1 is your classroom lessons. Everyone gets them. I know that there's a Stand Together went into classrooms and talked about mental health. We have the Start With Hello program. We had career and college planning program that went into all the classes. There was a study skills that went into classes, and we are really upping that this year for more classroom interventions. That's where the increase for tier 1 is coming from. And then tier 2 is the students who may not be responding to the tier 1 interventions. Maybe, I've had a study skills group or a study skills class, but now there's still 5 kids who might be struggling in this class. We create a group for them. So this is more of an individual or group counseling specific, small 6 to 8 week, give them a little bit more intensive support that you're working with. And then tier 3 is really where we start to bow out a little bit in a more of a supportive role. So that's where it starts to get more into what Miriam would do, where she would work with students where, hey, done interventions in the classroom. I work with the student individually. I work with the student in a group format. And we're still not seeing a change, or maybe it's gotten worse. What else do we have? Other referrals. So things like going to a school-based therapist, with Mrs. Rabley going through her process. Maybe that still isn't happening, or the parent doesn't have money for it. So there's a lot of different things that we can do and reach out community-wise that Miriam can kind of be that in between and help us get to that piece. So that's what I mean by the tier 1 interventions is what we're trying to do more of, is pushing out more and more into the classrooms so everyone gets as much information as possible about social emotional learning. And if anyone out there has not signed up for our newsletters that come out every week, they are a great source of information. So I did want to put a little plug in there. If you have not signed up for this, it comes out Sunday evening. It'll tell you everything that's happening, and really will keep you in the loop of all kind of new programs or things that we do, or copies of things that we have done in the classroom. For example, we had gone into 9th grade classes and done study skills. That presentation was pre-recorded and then pushed out that way too. So you can see some of the things that we are doing in the classroom, what the students are actually seeing on their end as well. And that brings me to questions, concerns, anything I can answer for you. I also have the chat open if anyone has anything they want to chat as well. If you don't want your voice recorded. I know it's weird with the Zoom.
Hi, Ms. Weber.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. What can I answer for you?
So just question. I mean, I'm Samantha Murphy from Allegheny County, involved with the school attendance world outside of school districts often. And just curious about the middle school social emotional tier 1 learning focused on attendance.
Mhm.
Are you seeing school attendance at the middle school as a challenge more than others, or just I'm just wondering why that was the focus for middle school. I'm just curious.
I think the focus for the middle school with attendance pieces is there is such a change between the elementary and the middle school. And our middle school also now is 6th grade. That recently has just changed in the past 2 years. And these kids haven't had to, quote unquote, like go to school for the past few years. So my concern was that just transitioning from the elementary to the middle, getting up, doing those things, reestablishing that routine is much harder, I think, at the middle school level to just follow those basic behavioral patterns. And so that's why I was thinking attendance might be a good focus for that piece.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. I just didn't know if it was you were seeing some kind of dip specifically for middle school in data, or just kind of getting them on track. I think that's great. Thank you.
I'm Franz Renner from the middle school. Sorry. And I can do student assistance. I can kind of answer that question. Sorry, Dawn's in the room. That's what the echo was. So last year and part of the year before that, we did see increase in terms of, obviously with everything going on with COVID and like logging onto the computer as well as coming into school. So we end up doing, I guesstimate, well over 100 home visits, visiting families and kids. So that was part of why it was also identified as a concern area.
All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, I can actually go back in the presentation here. Our next meeting will be March 23rd. I did forget my last slide. Sorry. And I'll remind people and send emails and things. But I'm going to go ahead back up to the email page, which is all the way in the beginning, of course. So if you have any questions, concerns, things that pop up after this, feel free to reach out. You can reach out to anyone if there's something specific you had a question for one of the counselors, but you can also reach out to me as well. And a question, anything you need from the group outside of the district. I think, especially when it comes to things like attendance, the attendance improvement plans is something, we struggle to get sometimes parents in to work with us on that. Seeing a lot of students who are just having a hard time doing the basic routine of school. And so whatever we can do to try to help them be able to get up, get into the building. Sometimes that's a struggle, just even getting them into the building. Usually once they're here, they're okay. But it's just a change in how they have to function. All right, well, I hope you all have a great day. Feel free to email us with any questions, and hope to see you all in March. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks.